Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at PGX Grading Services, the Gen X place to get your comics grading and in case, shipping nationwide. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Codename New to Vero 2. Hi, I'm your presenter, Who are you? Well, it's been some time since we've done our last PGX unboxing episode. And boy, the wait is going to be worth it because we do have an excellent assortment of books to discuss. Now, since we have a whole bunch of new subscribers to this channel, basically this segment is the books that I sent off to grading and that have come back. And basically we're going to discuss these books, their significance in the Gen X history, and also whether they are books to consider for your personal collection. On a side note, the economy for comic books is not doing good. A lot of prices have been knocked down, which is a good time to get in and buy key issues. Now, being a former government auditor and knowing the business cycle, everything works up and down, up and down. But the fact is, you could still have fun. I mean, I don't really focus in on the monetary aspect, even though that it's there. It's more about the fun of getting that feeling that we did in the 80s and 90s, reading these wonderful books. Comics are very important because it teaches values. And I think a lot of these kids, today's kids, are focusing on monetary or have their face in a phone. They're not looking at the words and the context of what these comics are trying to teach, especially in our era. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe is the reason why this whole segment started. And I got most of my Marvel run graded, so I wanted to branch off to other iconic titles like Spider-Man or X-Men and stuff like that. But basically, it's a fun segment where we could all reminisce and look at some amazing comic books. On a side note, I have to make an announcement. I will no longer be featuring PGX Grading Services because I think the owner, Tony, well, not because, it is the fact that he kind of didn't talk to me properly. And I think he's more concerned with bigger modern comic YouTube channels versus my little ass channel. And that's good. It's all, there's nothing wrong with EGS. It's a, excellent alternative to CGC. But now going forward, we will be exclusive PGX grading services because Danny, the owner of PGX, is a 5-star guy. And he's been there with me since day one and is a sponsor of this channel. He's an awesome person and awesome to deal with. And the service that I get is second to none. So without further ado, let's take a look at this month's PGX unboxing. All right, so the first book we're going to start off with, it's the second time I've acquired this book. I sold the other one raw, and I kind of regret it because with this one, I got a lower grade. But at the same time, it's a significance of what this book symbolizes. And I'm talking about Ghost Rider 29. The first time Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange meet each other. This, I think, has a significance in the MCU, and that we've seen Werewolf by Night, and we see Doctor Strange going into Doctor Strange number 3. We know that somewhere down the road, the horror element of the MCU is going to be brought out. You look at it as 3 levels that the Disney, Marvel, MCU stuff is going towards. They have the main stuff, then they're going to have Young Avengers, and then they're going to have the horror aspect of it with characters like Werewolf by Night, Man-Thing. Doctor Strange will probably be pulled into that more so, and everybody's anticipating for the arrival of my favorite guy, Ghost Rider. So the other book I had, I think would have gotten a 7, but this one came out to a 4 because in the back there's a lot of staining in there. I didn't see that when I picked this up, but again, it still looks amazing. And there's little tick marks. Well, there's a few tick marks on the side and on the top of the book, so I understand this. And the good thing that Tony from EGS has taught me is the grading system. So I think this is actually 4 or 5 would have been right. And now that I see the back, I totally understand. And just to educate people real quickly, they have tiers. So think of it as a pyramid. So if a book has a certain deficiency, it gets knocked down where it can only get an 8. From that 8.0, then you have to start your deductions. So if you have this stain or flood water damage, the highest it could get is an 8.0, just giving you. And then from there, you add your deductions, -2 here, -2 there, -2 there. That's how grading system is. And it's funny because it's subjective, as I've been saying. So there's no like governing body like SEC or FDIC or such to like, it is a self-regulating thing, which I've always felt is stupid, because that's what's keeping comics from being a viable and baseball cards and all this other stuff. The whole grading element of it always has that asterisk next to it. Anywho, this book still looks and presents wonderful. A book from 1978, is nothing. I always love these Bronze Age 70s books, early 80s books. They're the ones that attract me so much because of that's kind of, well, I was too little to read. I probably started like in the mid 80s, really, like 86, 87. I mean, that tells you my age, so I think that was more, but for a lot, like my uncle and stuff, that this is the books I saw lying around when I went to my uncle's room. So that always brings back those memories. But this is an excellent, excellent book to pick up, because it's not just the first appearances or first solo. It's also key moments that are going to happen that will play out in the big screen. And I think that Doctor Strange and Ghost Rider is a very important thing that will happen in the MCU. So Ghost Rider, number 29. The next book we're going to feature is The Two Titans, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Whenever you get any book with those two Mount Rushmore figures in the world of comics, it's always a good day. We're going to take a look at Thor 144, written in September of 1967. And this book is surprisingly came out absolutely beautiful. It's the first time you're going to hear For Asgard being mentioned, as it shows it right in the cover. But this book is kind of a segue into a lot of things that are going to happen in the MCU. I mean, not the MCU, in Thor. A lot of the Inhumans are going to come. And I just think that this book, the way it came out and the way it looks, is absolutely stunning. Sure, it got a 6.0, but it's a 1967 book that has Stan Lee and Jack the King Kirby's name attached to it. Anytime I find any of these, it's a no-brain pickup for me. I don't care what it's worth. It's the fact that these books need to be picked up and preserved ASAP, because how long they've been sitting in a bag and board is an injustice to this book. It's so much history, and the value of it is pretty good. Nothing over the top. There's no real key first appearances except for that phrase. And like I said, it's kind of one of those regular tweener issues that's setting up a bigger storyline that's coming soon. But again, the cover of Thor and just the fact that it had For Asgard right in the cover of it is definitely significant. And I think this book came out beautifully. PGX's grading, clean and press service is second to none. And I have to credit Danny and the team. I mean, yes, there are outside clean and press services. This is just to educate the normal viewer. But having one in-house that does as good of a job as PGX does is a added bonus, because usually you have to send the book to some other person who you're not really sure of, then hoping it gets sent to the grader. having a grade, and you're talking about a whole bunch of extra expenses that you're incurring during that entire process. And I talked about this with when we looked at grading magazines. I have to go through our good friend uh, Graded Sports Illustrated, and that's because he already has a CGC account set up where mine is no longer uh, active. I've stopped using CGC altogether, and I only use PGX. And you could see why. I mean, this book was dirty, it has white on it, but the fact is they brought back the color, the vibrant colors of it, and it looks really nice. I mean, yes, it does look like it came from 1967, but that's the beauty of it to me, is that while it is from 1967, it is clean, it is presentable, the cover is intact, the back looks absolutely great. This is a 5-star job by the team at PGX. So Thor 144. All right, real quick, I'd like to thank a friend who makes these special mugs. They sent me a scarlet one, and this is the Michael Jordan rookie card one. So I love these mugs. I'll have a link to their eBay store if anybody else is interested in picking up these mugs. But there's like a Darth Vader on the Kenner card back. It's just absolutely amazing what he does with these mugs, and they're not that bad. They're not like, he's not like overpricing these things. So I bought one and then I got one. Well, I got one sent and then I bought one. So this is something makes the morning look extra cool when, especially when you have guests over. They're like, "Oh, what's that?" They'll see this mug, but it's something I thought people might be interested in. All right. So the next book, everybody knows about. I love Elvira, and I've been a fan. We covered her. We talked to the writer, David Avalon, in an earlier episode of this channel. I'm not too familiar. I mean, obviously I know, but this is Bettie Page #5 with the photo variant. And we did that with Elvira, all the photo variants. We know of Bettie Page's life story. She was the icon before Marilyn Monroe, Pamela Anderson, all those other heartthrobs that came, and she has a significant place in history. Now, the sad part about Bettie Page's life is at the end. She wasn't able to capitalize on her likeness and her appearances. I think now her family is getting that from these cover appearances. So there's a bittersweet irony to it. But at the same time, I know David Avalon, I'm sorry, John Royal's covers for Bettie Page is what got me interested. I mean, he did homages to Maleficent featuring Bettie Page, Tinkerbell featuring Bettie Page. John Royal's artwork is what got me interested in this line. But for some reason, this picture captivated me. It's why I went ahead and got it graded, because it captures a time of American history, and I thought that was important. And plus, it looks good too. So even nowadays in 2023, Bettie Page is definitely someone to appreciate, so to speak. But this is another job, Dynamite. This came out in 2020 during the pandemic, so it was one of those things that I definitely captivated. As no significant value to it whatsoever. I mean, a little bit, probably like, you're talking about $30, $40, but now that it's graded, but still, it's just stunning. And I think I definitely will keep this in my personal collection. All right, so the next book we're going to take a look at is a total surprise, and why it pays to dive and look through those back issues, because this was totally unexpected. I was visiting one of our friends, Docking Bay 94, who we featured many times on this channel and was a sponsor for the longest time. And I was able to pull up a genuine Peter David signed book at next to nothing. That was a total shocker. And I asked John, who's the owner, I'm like, is this legit? And he's like, it looks like his signature. And then when you look online, sure enough, that is Peter David's signature. Peter David is one of those iconic titans in the writers, especially in the 90s, mostly associated with the Incredible Hulk. He kind of brought the Incredible Hulk back into style in the 90s with the whole gray Hulk thing, then going back to the green Hulk. And John Byrne concentrated on She-Hulk while he was more on the Incredible Hulk. But again, he is one of those childhood artists or writers that definitely needs to get recognized. Larry Hama, him, George Perez, John Byrne, all of these guys that are featured on our good friend Comic Tropes' channel. You can't ignore them. And the fact that I picked this in the back bin and it was totally overlooked by everybody, and sure, I sent it over to PGX. They verified the signature and you see the gold label that this is a authentic signature of Peter David. So they have that system where they look at the signature and verify that this is in fact that person. I know people are going to say maybe there isn't. Is it 100% certain? None of them are, unless they're signing it right, like at the CGC signings. But with that, it's a 98% probability factor, and I'll go with that because it is a tough thing to authenticate someone's signature. But having a 98% return, or I guess the accuracy, is pretty good. So this is, and everybody could look online to see Peter David's. It's really tough to kind of duplicate, especially the back, his at the end of his David. It's kind of like looks like an L versus a D. So that's something he always does. So I'm just kind of shocked that I was able to find a genuine Peter David signed Hulk issue. This book has no value. No thing of significance except that it has the white Nick Fury when he was white before Samuel L. Jackson. I think that's kind of funny. But just the fact to get it and to add it to my heroes from my childhood is a definite bonus. And the back, you got I guess kind of the game that's back there that it's on there, the X-Men Spider-Man game. What a disappointment. This game is such a disappointment. It's such a pain in the ass. It's frustrating, but at the same time, it keeps you engaged. So, I'll talk about that in another episode. But anyway, it's kind of cool. You have that advertisement, and then in the front, you have Peter David's signature. So, The Incredible Hulk 410, signed by the legend, Mr. Hulk himself, Peter David. All right, so the second to last book is kind of just like the one I talked about with the Bettie Page issue. It's the artwork, it's the cover itself that kind of compelled me to pick this up and to send it in for grading. There's not really any monetary value associated with it, but the fact that this is one of those new artists that are definitely, I guess, popular with modern comic kiddos. And you could see why when you see this cover. So this is the Dejah Thoris issue number 11 from Dynamite. And with Dynamite, there's always a shitload of covers. There's especially because you think about Vampirella, they always have like 10 covers, and we talked about that in another episode. But this Lucio Perillo cover is absolutely a stunt. Amazing. It is breathtaking. It looks like it's like a watercolor or something like that. It's just absolutely amazing. It looks like a painting, basically. So that's why I picked this up. And there's what's her name? There's one cosplayer who does Dejah Thoris, and she's really good at it. So you know what I mean. So anyway, I'll put a link to that channel below. But with Jamie Gardner or something like that. Anyway, but she's one of those cosplayers, and she does this. She's in the West Coast or anything. But I think that this cover is absolutely. Sorry about the glare, but again, the cover is what really compelled me, and it has a typical Dynamite back. All the Dynamite books usually have this in advertisement to their app or what have you. But again, the cover is absolutely stunning. Trying to get the glare out. There's no hope for it. Anyway, so that's that. Alrighty, so unfortunately my microphone died while filming the last comic book we're going to take a look at. But that's okay, I get to redo it again. And real quick, by the time this video drops, G.I. Joe issue 301, as well as a director's cut for G.I. Joe issue number 1 back in the Marvel run, is going to be debuting today. So like my regulars know, I usually wait. Since 2014, I wait 1 month just so I don't affect the sales. It's important because there's a lot of jobs attached to this, and you do not want to take away sales and deprive these people who work so hard to keep G.I. Joe alive from getting low numbers like that. So I know a lot of people have been buying, and that's great. And we also have an influx of new G.I. Joe fans or people jumping on the bandwagon. You see all these Facebook pages and YouTube channels that were not in existence suddenly pop up, and they're just trying to get views. Well, a real fan would know that there's people behind the scenes that work very hard to provide us with this wonderful, wonderful franchise. So make note of that, and this is just a little bit of a lesson to these upstarts. Anyway, let's take a look at this last issue. Again, anything with Stan the Man on it, like I said, is worth preserving and encasing. And this issue doesn't have that much of a monetary. It does, but it is Tales of Suspense featuring Iron Man and Captain America from 1967 as well. This book came out absolutely beautiful. Look at that. I mean, there has a fine line with these grading services as making it look like it's from the 60s while also making it look amazing and beautiful. The yellow and white are 2 colors, and black are 3 colors that are a pain in the ass when you do clean and press. And you could see that the guys at PGX know what the hell they're doing, because this book came out perfect. I mean, the other thing also is that this has a team of Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. One of the reasons why I picked this book up is because there was news at the time of John Romita not doing so well, and since then he has sadly passed away. Now, when people think of Spider-Man, I always think of John Romita Sr. because not so much Steve Ditko, yes, he was one of the originators, one of the creators, but John Romita is the one who really who put a stamp on Spider-Man. And his artwork through the years and carried on by his son is something that is, we should owe it not but thanks to him for his contributions. It is absolutely amazing. So to have that combination of Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. on anything, it's definitely worth preserving and encasing. And I love how this book came out. Look at the back. Like we've seen this back cover on other issues before, but how it comes out so nice and clean, the sides, the creases, everything. PGX did an amazing job with their clean and press service on this issue. And again, it's just we have the white Nick Fury, so that's a rarity nowadays as well because of Samuel L. Jackson being so fixated on that character. So it's just kind of cool to have something. So we have 2 books from the 1960s. That's not bad at all, and I thought that's worthwhile to do this showcase. Anyway, with that aside, stay tuned. We're going to have issue 155.5 dropping before the end of this weekend, so you got to look forward to that. So while you're enjoying the Skybound Image G.I. Joe 301, you could see how IDW kickstarted and kind of compare the 2 companies launching or relaunching the title from that perspective. So that's always fun to do. Anyway, this is Shabu Are You. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Have a good one.